I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And here we are, we're at the big one, the final predictions for the 2026 Oscar nominations in all 24 categories. I'm going to be breaking down my picks 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 of each and every category, giving you a little bit of context and insight as to why I predicted what I did. But if you're new to the channel, welcome. What I've been doing now on our 10th season, 10 years of accurately predicting the Oscars, going all the way back to the La La Land year, we've been predicting individual categories, doing deep dives on Best Actor, as well as some of the below-the-line stuff like Best International Film. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts, you can check out some of those videos. But some of those predictions are somewhat inaccurate, so these are going to be my final predictions that I'm going to go with before the Oscar nominations this Thursday. And stay tuned, I'm going to be releasing my live reactions to the Oscar nominations on Thursday, including some of that instant analysis. But if you just want to see my predictions or hear me talk about an individual category, feel free to use the description below. I have my full list of predictions and timestamps to individual categories if you want to hear my thoughts and say something like Best Animated Short or refer to it back before you make your own predictions. Because ultimately, these are mine, but they're here to help you make your own predictions and to hear someone else's thoughts. Just a couple kind of rules up at the top. I'm not going to be talking about why I went with one movie over another movie. I'm not going to be talking too much about the movies essentially that I didn't choose and why I didn't choose them, just because of the interest of time. I'm just going to talk about the pick that I ultimately did make and the reasons for that pick. And then in terms of my ranking of the nominations, they are ranked from 1 to 5 in order of likelihood of being nominated. So if a movie's in my 5th slot, I'm not as confident as if it's in my 1st slot. And I'm not going to be talking about who I think is going to win each category. We're going to have a month of analysis talking about that. We're not going to go anywhere away. Still eventually predicting now the Oscars once the nominations come out. But the nominations are the fun one just because they're so complex, they're so big, there's so much analysis to be done. It is a lot of work that we've been doing for the past 3 months or even for the past 10 years in history and analysis to hopefully deliver you with some great Oscar nominations. So without further ado, let's get into things. Starting off with my predictions for Best Picture, I have One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Sinners, Marty Supreme, Frankenstein, Sentimental Value, Bugonia, Train Dreams, The Secret Agent, and It Was Just an Accident. And, I feel good about this in terms of these picks. I think the top 6 have gone in everywhere. If you don't have those movies in your Best Picture rankings, you're probably going to be wrong. Those top 6 have been getting everywhere. Golden Globes, PGA, good support of American and International. Then in my 7th spot, I ended up going with Bugonia. This is a movie that has been rising, showing up at a lot of these smaller guilds that it's not necessarily going to get nominated for, like, MPSC for the motion picture sound editors or Best Costume Design. But it does indicate a strong sense of industry support, whether it be the surprise at PGA or the surprise at SAG, now the Actors Awards. It has been clearly indicative, at least to me, that Bugonia is really well liked by the industry, so it should be very comfortable for a Best Picture nomination. And then with my 8th spot, went with Train Dreams. Feel good about this as well. Think it's going to get a couple of nominations, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think its big win was getting nominated at PGA. That is a group that usually is very accurate with the Oscars. Every year there are about 8 or 7 out of 10 that they usually overlap with the Oscars 10. So it's very helpful just to take that PGA list and then figure out, okay, what are the 1 or 2 movies that are not going to make it? But Train Dreams showing up there is good because that's not a typical movie that they love. They like big blockbuster type movies sometimes. They'll nominate a Deadpool or a Wonder Woman or a Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and these movies end up not getting nominated at the Oscars for Best Picture. But the producers want to reward them because they were big, populist, celebrated movies by audiences. And Train Dreams doesn't fit that mold, which indicates to me that it's based on the fact that it has some general appreciation from just everybody. And I think that's also going to kind of translate to the Oscars. So I essentially wanted to take the PGA 10 and then say, okay, let's pick 8 out of the 10 and then pick a couple other different movies. So the decision was, what are the 2 movies that are going to miss and what are the 2 movies that are going to get in? I looked at Weapons and F1, which are clearly the kind of box office type movies that PGA likes to reward that the Oscars don't, removed them and added in 2 international films, The Secret Agent and It Was Just an Accident. And I want to do that because since the beginning of the season, I want to over-index in international films. We're on our 10th season now, and I've seen the Academy change to become more international, and therefore their tastes become more international as the Academy has expanded internationally. The Secret Agent reminds me a lot of I'm Still Here from last year, another Brazilian film that got nominated for Best Picture and Best Lead Actor, or Lead Actress in that case. I think, Wagner Moura on The Secret Agent is going to follow a similar path, maybe even get some more nominations, has critics' support, and also a lot of that international support as well. Winning international film at Critics' Choice and Golden Globes, there is some appreciation there. And then I also went with It Was Just an Accident because I do have it in a couple of other nominations. And I look at, Jafar Panahi getting in for Best Director at the Golden Globes. Or I look at the screenplay getting nominated at the Golden Globes. Or I look at the fact that 4 out of the last 5 Palme d'Or winners at Cannes got nominated at the Oscars. Jafar Panahi, his film, It Was Just an Accident, won Palme d'Or at Cannes. So I have become less confident in it over the past few weeks as the movie just doesn't seem to have enough passion to win awards. But it has been very good over the past few months here at getting nominated. And I wanted to over-index international films. I saw the Palme d'Or connection, which is real. I saw the fact that he's been getting some precursors in terms of from international voting bodies like the Golden Globes. And because I wanted to over-index in international films, because the Academy has become so international, I ended up including in my 10th spot It Was Just an Accident. And then my picks for Best Actress, I have Jessie Buckley, Hamnet, Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Chase Infiniti, One Battle After Another, Emma Stone, Bugonia, and Renate Reinsve for Sentimental Value. So for a lot of my acting awards, what I ended up deciding to do was take the Actors Awards, formerly known as SAG, because they're very accurate at predicting the acting nominees for the Oscars. Take whatever 5 that they chose, remove one, and add in an international nominee. That was kind of my approach here. And that's what I did for pretty much every single one of the acting categories. Starting off for Best Actress here, I ended up removing Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue, added back in Renate Reinsve for Sentimental Value. So Jessie Buckley is the frontrunner to win Hamnet Best Picture frontrunner, or Best Picture potential contender. That's going to get in. Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, won the Golden Globe, gave a really great speech, and is the critics' favorite of the year. Usually those end up showing up in the acting categories. We also have Emma Stone in Bugonia. I mentioned how I think Bugonia is on the rise, and Emma Stone's been getting nominated everywhere else. Even if Bugonia wasn't going to be a Best Picture contender, I still probably would have had her in for actress, 2-time winner, very well beloved. I have Chase Infiniti as well for One Battle After Another. I think she's going to ride the wave of what I expect to be a potential One Battle After Another sweep come Oscar night. And we've seen other actors kind of follow suit along with the success of past films to get acting nominations. And the acting category in particular, the female acting category, the actress category, likes younger actresses more than older actresses. So that fits the mold here for Chase Infiniti. But then in that 5th spot, ultimately going with Renate Reinsve over Sentimental Value over Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue. Because Sentimental Value, I have it for Best Picture. I think it's going to get a lot of nominations. Wanted to over-index in international films. You'll see that as a trend for a lot of my picks this year. Renate Reinsve just won the European Film Awards award for Best Actress. And aside from the Actors Award, has been getting in at Critics' Choice and the Golden Globes and got shortlisted at BAFTA. So while we don't have BAFTA just yet, which is going to be a little bit tricky, I am still kind of confident in this 5. In particular, someone like Renate Reinsve, who's only been doing more and more Hollywood films since the Academy probably first saw her in The Worst Person in the World, which got nominated for Best Original Screenplay back in 2021. So don't panic. I think that Renate missed out at the Actors Awards. They frequently don't reward international films. And at the Academy, which is what we're predicting here, the Oscars, they'll go with Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here, or Penelope Cruz and Parallel Mothers. These international films that don't get a lot of precursors still end up showing up at the Oscars. And Renate is in that prime position in a bit likely Best Picture movie. Seen before, has done some more Hollywood movies, and has a lot of European awards. So that kind of correlation, I think, is stronger than someone like a Kate Hudson, who would only be likely the only person from her movie to get nominated. Then my picks for Best Actor, I have Timothée Chalamet, Marty Supreme, Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke, Blue Moon, Wagner Moura, The Secret Agent, and Jesse Plemmons, Bugonia. Again, I'm kind of going with the SAG 5, but then swapping out one of the performances. So we have Chalamet in Marty Supreme, the frontrunner, 2-time nominee and a strong Best Picture contender. Same thing with DiCaprio, strong Best Picture contender, and you have a past winner and multiple-time nominee. Ethan Hawke from Blue Moon, similar to like Rose Byrne, is the critics' favorite of the year. And I also think that this is from Sony Pictures Classics, who are experts at campaigning. And oftentimes they'll get performances nominated where the performance is the only thing nominated from that movie. Think of someone like a Bill Nighy for Living, or even we mentioned, Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers. They're experts at campaigning, in particular for getting these kind of one-off acting nominations. Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon fits that mold beautifully. And it has general appreciation. Richard Linklater, acclaimed director. People have been seeing the movie. Ethan Hawke's a past nominee, so confident in those top 3. Then I went with Wagner Moura and The Secret Agent. He didn't get in at the Actors Awards, but I'm still confident he's going to get in. He won the Golden Globe over Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, and gave a really great speech the day before the Oscars voting, so I think that's going to matter. I have The Secret Agent in for Best Picture, so I do think that international contingent of the Academy will really appreciate this film. And then you also have people like the Critics' Choice giving this film Best International Film. So there still is some American support for him and his performance generally. That combined with the international factor, I think will kind of easily carry him to a nomination. In fact, even though he didn't get in at the Actors Awards, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get nominated. But the big kind of surprise of my predictions, I think, is predicting Jessie Plemmons and Bugonia over Michael B. Jordan. And Michael B. Jordan is the safe pick. He's gone in pretty much everywhere. In many ways, it's ridiculous for me not to predict him. And yet, you want to predict surprises. You want to predict something that you don't think is going to happen on Oscar morning. It's boring just to go completely chalk. I like to try to predict surprises, but calculated ones that I think make sense. And knowing the Academy like I have, this is my 10th season predicting the Oscars. We've been intensely thinking about the Academy Awards for a long time. Knowing them like I have, they don't really appreciate the Michael B. Jordan style of performance, which is, in my opinion, the movie star performance. That's why they snubbed a Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick or a Margot Robbie in Barbie. And I think Michael B. Jordan, while giving an excellent performance, is in a little bit more of that mold. So will they nominate the kind of movie star performance in the movie they like in Sinners, or will they nominate a movie like Bugonia, which we know the industry really loves? It's a movie that's rising in my estimation, showing up at a lot of these industry awards, guild awards. And Jessie Plemons is a past nominee. Unlike Michael B. Jordan, he is a little bit more of, I think, the prestige pick. He is the actor that was a character actor turned dramatic actor. He's your actor's favorite actor. Versus like a Michael B. Jordan, who is more of the movie star side of things, who does that element very well within the film, but gets underappreciated because people are so interested in the other elements of Sinners that they don't appreciate the kind of strong core of the film. So, like I said, this is maybe not something I would personally do, and this may be a ridiculous upset, but at the end of the day, Jessie Plemons did get shortlisted at BAFTA. He did make the Actors Awards. Begonia is rising, and I do see him as more of the prestige actor within the Academy's mind versus the movie star in a Michael B. Jordan. And historically, the Academy used to more so lean towards the prestigious type of a film, the actor's favorite actor, versus the kind of movie star trying to get an Oscar. And that's why I ultimately wanted to do a surprise. I do understand it's a risk, but wanted to go with Jessie Plemons in Bugonia. Then for Best Supporting Actress, I have Teyana Taylor, One Battle After Another, Amy Madigan, Weapons, Inga Ibsdotter Lilleaas, Sentimental Value, Odessa Zion, Marty Supreme, and Wunmi Mosaku, Sinners. So this is another category that is fun, although unlike some of the other acting categories, there could be a huge different kind of combination of winners or potential nominees. I have probably my top 2 I'm confident in. Teyana Taylor, One Battle After Another, will ride the success of this appreciation of the film, which is a very well-liked film, critically acclaimed film, and she won the Golden Globe. Amy Madigan for Weapons, it may be a sole nominee for her film, but it has some general appreciation. The film generally, it still got in at PGA. Amy Madigan won the Critics' Choice Awards, is a past Oscar nominee, a kind of legend, an older actor that the supporting categories usually like to reward. And gives a dynamite performance that's been well appreciated by the critics. So you have critic support, and you have some early indication where she's been showing up pretty much everywhere she needed to. So it's not a typical type of performance that the Academy likes, but I think it was so transcendent within the genre that it'll be recognized here. Then I went with Inga Ibsdotter Lilleaas. She didn't get in at the Actors Awards, but similar to Renate for Sentimental Value, felt confident including her here. At one point, I felt it was going to be either Inga or Elle Fanning or both, but it does seem that Elle Fanning's maybe fallen away a little bit, despite being an American, not showing up at the Actors Awards, not being shortlisted at BAFTA. So I think she's kind of fallen off, and instead I think the clear support is behind Inga and her performance. She's in a lot more of the movie as well, in a movie that I expect to be nominated for Best Picture and many other categories, so felt confident that because I'm betting on Sentimental Value generally to get in for Best Picture and a bunch of other categories, I want to also include the fact that if you like that movie, she's a key part to the emotional register of the film, and she's been showing up everywhere, just except for the Actors Awards, which usually don't like to appreciate international films anyways, so still want to, once again, remove one of the actor, the SAG 5, and then add an international film. And then also want to keep from the Actors Awards Odessa Zion from Marty Supreme. Every year we see this where some people get an idea of their heads from Critics' Choice and Golden Globes of the acting contenders. And then a surprise will happen, let's say, at the Actors Awards. And then a surprise will happen at BAFTA. And people don't react to that, or they're too slow to react because they're so solidified in the 5 that they have. But I always try to be flexible. I try to be like water and understand that, when the industry tells you they like a movie or they like something, it's best to kind of follow suit with that and to realize that that may happen at the Oscars. Because at the end of the day, award shows like the Actors Awards or BAFTA are much more valuable than Golden Globes or Critics' Choice, because you actually have actual potential Academy member voters in SAG that are voting on SAG, they're then voting on the Oscars. You have that replicatability of what's the industry going to do versus what's critics or what's an independent body going to do. There is some distinction there. And Odessa Zion, I think, fits the traditional mold of what we've seen of these kind of surprises. Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown just last year, or Ana de Armas a couple years ago for Blonde. These were performances that clearly the industry liked, that maybe the critics didn't, and people ended up not really predicting them, but were proven ultimately wrong. I didn't want to be wrong this year. Odessa Zion is in a Best Picture contender, a strong one in that she's a new face, so there's a sense of discovery to her. And like I mentioned, the actress categories likes these younger actors, like an Ana de Armas or a Monica Barbaro, fits that mold as well. BAFTA also included Gwyneth Paltrow, so clearly there's an appreciation for the acting in that film. So making it at the Actors Awards, making it the BAFTA long list, being a typical type of a nominee at the Oscars like to reward younger actor in a strong Best Picture movie. This in particular category, over the past, I think, 5 years, 3.6 out of the 5 nominees are from Best Picture movies. So that's a trend we've definitely been seeing in the supporting actress category. Once again, that fits it there. She fits so many of these boxes, checks so many of these boxes. I'd be silly not to include Odessa Zion, feel confident about that. And then my 5th spot, I went with Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners for a lot of the same reasons. She's not as young as Odessa Zion, but she still is new to the Academy, hasn't done too much credits, a lot of TV, so I don't think the Film Academy has seen too much of her. She's dynamite in her film, and is the clear, I think, supporting actress from her film. There is no potential number 2 that she could split votes for, which isn't necessarily the case for Sinners in the supporting actor category. She got in the Actors Awards. She made the shortlist at BAFTA. She's actually 3rd place right now for critics surprises, and we know that critics and the Academy are starting to align more within the past 2 years. That's another strong sign. So I'm betting on a actor in a strong Best Picture movie. I'm betting on someone who's been nominated in some key industry places, even if she wasn't nominated at some of the other critics type prizes for something like the Golden Globes. She still got in for the Actors Awards and still got shortlisted at BAFTA. So I do think, I'm not super confident in it, but ultimately included her over someone like an Ariana Grande or an Emily Blunt in movies that I don't have in for Best Picture. Want to over-index in strong Best Picture movies that also have some industry stats behind it. Wunmi Mosaku has both. Then my picks for Best Supporting Actor. I have Benicio del Toro, One Battle After Another, Paul Mescal, Hamnet, Jacob Elordi, Frankenstein, Stellan Skarsgård, Sentimental Value, and Sean Penn for One Battle After Another. So this 5 I've been confident in since my video back in October, 3 months ago. Pretty much all 5 of the men have been nominated everywhere except for Stellan Skarsgård, who missed at the Actors Awards, but Stellan won the Golden Globes. So we know an international body like the Golden Globes loves that performance. So once again, wanted to take the Actors 5. Who was I going to remove out and add in Stellan Skarsgård? Well, it made obvious sense to go with Miles Caton because he wasn't nominated anywhere else. He wasn't even making the BAFTA long list. His co-star, Delroy Lindo, made the BAFTA long list. So there's potential in vote splitting, where some people love Delroy Lindo and some people like Miles Caton, and they ultimately don't have enough passion to get both of them or either of them nominated, whereas something like One Battle After Another with Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, they've been nominated and gone in everywhere, whether it be the BAFTA long list or SAG or Critics' Choice or Golden Globes. So could a surprise happen in this category? Absolutely, but I'm not going to predict it because Adam Sandler was the kind of number 6 pick for Jay Kelly in Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. Miles Caton was it for the Actors Awards. Delroy Lindo was for BAFTAs. So what is that number 6? Because it's so been split, there is no number 6. There is no clear alternative. Instead, I get to go with 2 performances from the strongest movie of the year in One Battle After Another. I get to go with Jacob Elordi in Frankenstein, an essential co-lead in a really well-liked movie. Same thing with Stellan Skarsgård, co-lead or lead in a really well-liked movie. A potential co-lead in a really well-liked movie, Paul Mescal for Hamnet. So then talk about the best director category now. My picks are Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another, Ryan Coogler, Sinners, Chloe Zhao, Hamnet, Joachim Trier, Sentimental Value, and Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme. So, like I talked about for the acting categories and even PGA, I wanted to take whatever that guild equivalent was, take their nominees, and then either remove 1 or 2 and add in an international factor. That's been working well for the past few years for me, wanting to add in kind of international stuff, not just going 5 for 5 with the American branch, understanding that there's an international component to the Academy and wanting to serve that group. And in particular, the DGA Awards, it's almost every single year for the past 10 years, except for, I think, once, where they go exactly 4 out of 5. Not 5 out of 5, not an average of 4 out of 5. I'm saying exactly every year, it's 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5. They always kind of take them and then remove one and add in someone else. Okay, so I took once again the DGA 5. I ended up removing Guillermo del Toro for Frankenstein. I figured that the directors liked him because he's a past nominee, he's a legend, he does a lot for other directors as well, Q&As, he's a big supporter of the industry and directors in general. Take him out and add in Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. He recently just won the European Film Award for Best Director. That's important. 4 out of the last 5 winners of that award ended up getting nominated at the Oscars. Surprises like Thomas Vinterberg or Ruben Östlund that we didn't have predicted ended up getting nominated because they won the European Film Award. I have Sentimental Value as a strong Best Picture contender, Screenplay contender. I didn't go with someone like a Jafar Panahi because it was just an accident. It seems to be falling in estimation, and Joachim Trier actually beat out Jafar Panahi, who was also nominated at the European Film Awards. And then, you have Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another, we're keeping him. He's the frontrunner in a well-liked movie. Ryan Coogler, Sinners, another strong frontrunner. I also have Chloe Zhao in Hamnet. That's another frontrunner. Now, not all the frontrunners ultimately get nominated for Best Director, but I thought the fact that Steven Spielberg introduced her as this great talent at the Golden Globes a day before voting, let's not forget, and, she's a past winner in this category, and she has a distinct style with her movies. It's not anonymously directed. It feels like Nomadland or Eternals, this kind of Terrence Malick, kind of woo-woo-esque nature in kind of intertwined artist-focused feeling, focused kind of a storytelling and visual style that Chloe Zhao absolutely brings. Then we swapped in Joachim for Guillermo del Toro, but kept Josh Safdie from Marty Supreme. I felt like this is a movie peaking at the right time. I think the fact that he got nominated at DGA is notable because he doesn't have some of those connections and that legacy that Guillermo del Toro has. I think the fact that the movie made a lot of money at the box office is a sign for hey, this could be a big American director for time to come. And I do think that he has a visual style where if you've seen some of his other movies, that anxiety-riddled fuel that he created it is evident, and there's an appreciation, I think, for his film from both the acting side. I expect multiple acting nominations, but then also things like production design, maybe a costume design, makeup, things like that. The below-the-line stuff will also have an appreciation. So there is kind of an old-school factor that I think Josh Safdie brought to Marty Supreme that the directors will like. And I thought about maybe replacing him as well for another international director, but it was just an accident decreasing. And with Kleber Mendoza Filho, I think not having the best Golden Globe acceptance speech, that didn't give him enough of a boost to get in there. So maybe we see another surprise and it's another international director, or maybe we see a shocker and someone like Chloe Zhao misses. But with that 5 right now, that's the one that is the most obvious in my head. Take the DGA 5, take one out, add one in. We're definitely adding in Joachim Trier. He's the international pick for me this year. But then the question is, who do you take out? I ultimately took out Guillermo del Toro because I think Marty Supreme has a couple more acting nominations and then the same amount of technical nominations, and then they kind of netted out to be the maybe more obvious, a little bit slightly more like movie Marty Supreme peaking at the right time. Then my picks for Best Original Screenplay, I have Sinners, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, It Was Just an Accident, and Sorry Baby. So the top four, I'm confident in. The top three I think are locks for Best Picture and have gone in pretty much everywhere. Then my fourth pick, I went with It Was Just an Accident because its strength, I've always mentioned, is its screenplay. So if I have it in for picture, it'd be weird to just get picture, international film, and then that's it. Wanted to include and give it at least another nomination, and its strength is screenplay. Also notable, I think that it got in at the Golden Globes for Best Screenplay, and that's not an original or adapted split. That's just a general screenplay category. So I think there's clearly some appreciation for the screenplay from the international branch of the Academy. Will likely vote similar to the international body of the Golden Globes. That was kind of my thinking there. Again, trying to over-index in international films. And then in my fifth spot, I had really no idea what to do. I didn't want to kind of get paralyzed with the infinite possibility of options because I think Weapons or Sorry Baby or The Secret Agent or Blue Moon have all pretty much great chances, maybe even Jay Kelly, at getting nominated here. So I just tried to pick the one that felt like the traditional original screenplay nomination. Oftentimes they'll go with the kind of cool pick, the indie pick, the Sundance pick. I think the fact that Julia Roberts shouted out Ada Victor at the height of the Golden Globes night the day before Oscar voting is maybe a chance for A24 to really get her movie seen and also just make voters aware of her film. It's a writer-director, which we know they like in these screenplay categories, a single writer. So I think ultimately I didn't want to get too paralyzed. Like I said, it could be any of these other films, but because I wanted to go with the kind of indie pick, the fun pick, the Sundancey pick, the screenplay award felt like the easy way to kind of include a movie like Sorry Baby, kind of an internet win in the same way Godzilla -1 getting in for visual effects was an internet win. We'll give the internet and film Twitter a win here and go with Sorry Baby. Best Adapted Screenplay, I went with One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Frankenstein, Bugonia, and Train Dreams. And unlike the original screenplay category, I actually feel very confident in that 5. I think that's a solid 5. I'd be surprised if someone predicted something different. You have One Battle After Another and Hamnet, two frontrunners to potentially win Best Picture. Frankenstein, another kind of guarantee, legendary adaptation of a classic story. That should get in based on the strength of the film itself. Bugonia and Train Dreams are two lower Best Picture contenders, but still I have them getting in for Best Picture. And unlike some of the other potential nominees, like No Other Choice or Wake Up Dead Man, Bugonia and Train Dreams have been showing up everywhere. They've been showing up at Critics' Choice and at BAFTA, versus something like No Other Choice, which will show up at, just something like the Golden Globes, some appreciation there, and Critics' Choice, but then maybe not BAFTA. So there is kind of some situations there where the other contenders just aren't as strong. So am I going to go with a movie like Wake Up Dead Man, or am I going to go with potential 2 Best Picture movies in Bugonia and Train Dreams? And there's almost an overlap every year where the original screenplay and adapted screenplay categories, if you take that 10, it's almost always 8 or 9 of the eventual Best Picture movies. There is a strong connection there, so I want to, once again, include essentially my entire Best Picture lineup in the screenplay categories. Then for Best Cinematography, I have Sinners, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Frankenstein, and Train Dreams. Again, another category I'm confident in. Who knows if I'm going to be right, but I at least feel good about those picks, and I won't be bad if something goes wrong, just because that's been the 5 that's been showing up pretty much most places. It is the ASC 5, the American Society of Cinematographers 5. I thought about maybe going with Hamnet, but after it missed at ASC and BSC, it didn't feel too good. And in fact, it missed both of those. It's not a good sign. That's the same thing that happened with the Zone of Interest when it missed that year. And then some of my more general stats. This 5 absolutely satisfies. It's got a 3 out of 5 overlap with my production design picks, which we know there's a strong connection between cinematography and production design, usually an average of 3 out of 5, so I feel good about that. An average of 3.6 out of the 5 nominees for cinematography also get nominated for Best Picture. All 5 of mine I'm predicting to get nominated for Best Picture. That's another positive sign. You have a lot of past winners, or nominees rather, in someone like a Darius Kanji or a Dan Louston. But then you also have some new people like Adolfo Veloso, who's been doing a lot of campaigning for the film and has been an emphasis on by Netflix on how it looks and on the cinematography. So I feel good, in part because there is no number 6, Camera Maj as well. They went with Late Shift, which isn't even shortlisted, and The Sound of Falling, which lost at the European Film Awards, so I don't think that's a super strong film. Maybe we see a surprise, but I felt good with that 5 there. Best Animated Feature, I have K-Pop Demon Hunters, Zootopia 2, Arco, Elio, Little Amelie, or the character of Rain. Another 5 I'm pretty confident in. You have the kind of 3 American films which got in at the PGA Awards and Golden Globes and got shortlisted at BAFTA. So they have kind of all those, that being Elio, Zootopia 2, and K-Pop Demon Hunters. Now, K-Pop Demon Hunters didn't get shortlisted at BAFTA, but it wasn't eligible. This group usually likes to go kind of half indie, half mainstream Hollywood with an emphasis on things like original Pixar. So don't be kind of fooled by, oh no, Elio, did that get great reviews? It doesn't matter. It's Pixar. It's original Pixar. Pretty much every single original Pixar movie has been nominated, even the bad ones. So include Elio in here. Zootopia 2 and the K-pop, well appreciated, and also big popular movies. And then the 2 indie movies, you have Little Amelie or The Character of Rain, which did very well at the Annie Awards, so there's some appreciation there. And then Arco, which won at the European Film Awards and has Neon as a distributor, which has gotten other films like Robot Dreams in the past nominated here. It's kind of the indie pick, different, and stands out in its art style as some of the other films. So there is no real, as well, a number 6. Maybe it could be a surprise with an anime like a Demon Slayer or a Scarlet, or maybe a Bad Guys 2. But with this 5 right now, this is the 5 that's been showing up pretty much everywhere. The question is, okay, which is the stronger indie? Is it Little Amelie or is it Arco? Arco wins at European Film Awards, so maybe it's stronger. Little Amelie does very well at the Annie, so maybe it's stronger. Both of them, though, showed strong signs of support that those are the 2 kind of indies that will kind of sneak in here. Then Best Editing, I have One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Sinners, Hamnet, and Frankenstein. And this is one of the toughest categories to predict just because we don't have the Ace Eddie Awards, the guild that helps us predict this category. We don't have the BAFTAs yet, just the long list, and then you have Critics' Choice. And I think that's actually kind of fooling some people. I went back and talked about this in my video, but I looked at the past 10 years. 5 nominees a year, 50 films. And I tried to figure out, okay, how many of those movies that were nominated for Best Editing also got nominated for Best Picture? And the answer was 46 out of 50, 92%. So when making my predictions, I felt very, simply that, all right, let me go with the top 5 Best Picture contenders. And that's what I have right here. Even in years in which movies that you think maybe don't have super flashy editing, like Banshees of Inisherin or The Holdovers, they almost always get nominated. Even if you can say a movie like Hamnet doesn't have really flashy editing, I see a lot of people not including that in. I consider it a top 2 contender. Every year we see it, that top 2 contender, whether it be The Holdovers, whether it be the Banshees of Inisherin, they almost always get in, even if it doesn't have super flashy editing. I mentioned that over the past 10 years, there's only been 4 movies, 8% of the time, a non-Best Picture movie gets nominated for Best Editing. So I know a lot of people have F1 in their predictions. I do not, because I'm not going to predict on something, a movie that only gets nominated 8% of the time. I'm not going to predict that to happen at the Oscars. Wanted to go with, this is essentially a mini Best Picture category. Then I went with my top 5 potential, Best Picture contenders. And then even just in terms of the editing, Marty Supreme has that fast-paced editing. One Battle and Sinners are kind of action movies with lots of that kind of fast editing. You have Hamnet, which I think is a top 2 contender, and then Frankenstein, which has the kind of dueling narratives and some action sequences as well. But in part, mostly, I picked them because they're top 5 contenders to get nominated for Best Picture, and 92% of the time to get nominated for Best Editing, you have to be nominated for Best Picture. That's a huge stat, I think, that people are maybe not overlooking and might be disregarding and not wanting to really appreciate because they're unsure. We don't have the Ace Eddies. Maybe there's going to be a surprise. Who knows? But these are the picks that I ultimately went with because I want to follow historical trends. Best Casting, a new category for this year. So who knows what's going to happen here. Just taking a shot in the dark, but I'll explain my reasoning regardless. I have Sinners, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Hamnet, and The Secret Agent. So it's a tough category, and anyone that says they know the answers is definitely wrong because no one knows. It's the first year of this category. But I want to think that it's going to be similar to the BAFTA's Best Casting category. I think that's going to be the most obvious parallel. So I looked at the kind of top 3 for my picks, and all 3 or 4 of them were nominated for Best Casting at or longlisted for Best Casting at BAFTA, and also showed up at the Actor Awards for Best Ensemble. So either way, how you think this category is going to go, is it going to be more like BAFTA Best Casting? Is it going to be more like the Actors Awards Best Ensemble Award? Regardless, my top 4 movies appear in both of those categories, so felt confident in there as well. They're well-liked movies, which always helps. Some of them are, legendary casting directors, like Jennifer Vendetti or Francine Maisler. And then my final pick, I went with The Secret Agent. And I did that because I noticed that other Best Casting awards at BAFTA, sometimes they'll go with international films, movies like Anatomy of a Fall, movies like The Hand of God. Because for, I think, a lot of Academy member voters, they're essentially discovery people who maybe they've never seen before and still are amazed by the performances. It feels like, to an American, you found all these amazing, great international actors before. And The Secret Agent has a bunch of these great character actors, great faces throughout the film. I also think it's notable that the Oscars, when we think back to the shortlist, what were the surprises? The Secret Agent getting in for Best Casting was a surprise. Sirach getting in for Best Casting was a surprise. That was on no one's radar. So that tells me is, maybe there's appreciation from the casting branch on international films, that they're not going to ignore international films entirely. So maybe it'll be so much so that they like an international film like The Secret Agent. I have it in for Best Picture. I have it in for Best Actor. Wanted to include it here for another category. Notice that there was an international bend on the Best Casting category at BAFTA, and I think that's going to be what's going to happen at the Oscars, that they're going to overlap in a certain way. Want to go with The Secret Agent here for my 5th pick, and then my other picks are strong, well-liked Best Picture movies that showed up in either the casting BAFTA long list or got the nominated for Best Ensemble at SAG, so kind of covered both of my bases. Best Production Design, I have Frankenstein, Sinners, Marty Supreme, Hamnet, and Wicked for Good. So, like I mentioned, this is a 3 out of 5 overlap with my cinematography picks, which is dead on average of what you want. All of my picks showed up at either the Art Directors Guild, Set Decorator Society, BAFTA long list for production design, so felt good about that. Frankenstein, all of Guillermo del Toro's movies either get nominated or win in this category. That's a lock. Sinners, I've been on since day one. Hannah Beachler, past winner for Black Panther. Well-liked movie. You think of the Juke Joint. That's an actual location. You think of Marty Supreme is from production designer Jack Fisk, who's been working with Terrence Malick since the 70s. Legendary production designer who's been nominated multiple times. Rebuilt a lot of old New York. Feels authentic, true. Hamnet, they rebuilt the Globe. That's a big set. Also from a past nominee and Fiona Crombie in a well-liked movie. And then my final pick going for Wicked for Good, because they usually like to do a lot of period movies, the period recreation of the kind of 19th century. That's their favorite time period. But then also they like to occasionally do at least one sci-fi fantasy movie. Think of Dune or even Wicked last year winning in this category. This is also from production designer Nathan Crowley. Been nominated 6 times in the last 20 years. Won last year. Very well respected for Damien Chazelle movies, for Christopher Nolan movies. And he won last year for this past Wicked movie. So I think he should at least get a nomination here for this latest one. Best Costume Design, I have Frankenstein, Sinners, Wicked for Good, Hamnet, and One Battle After Another. So we've had a few easy categories in a row where I've been, I'm very confident in these picks. Costume Design, I'm not confident at all. Because historically, when we look at the stats for this category, there are 2 predominant things. A, there's not a lot of overlap with the production design category. Usually only 2 or 3 films overlap with production design. And B, this is a category that loves past nominees. Well, both of those kind of true facts are wrong this year. I think there's going to be at least 3 or 4 new nominees, so not going to be many past nominees. And I think that there's going to be at least a 3 out of 5 overlap with production design, if not 4 out of 5, if not 5 out of 5. So I wanted to be flexible. I wanted to go follow the rules a little bit, but still flow and modernize and realize what the race is trying to tell you and not try to follow to these historical rules. That's ultimately what I ended up doing. Only went for 4 out of 5 overlap between the 2 categories and still chose, I believe, what would it be? Yes, 3 past nominees instead of the traditional 4, so felt good with that. Frankenstein and Sinners. Frankenstein is a new nominee, but is a classic period that they like, those big dresses, the suits, distinct colors. Del Toro's movies have done well in costume design in the past. Sinners as well from Ruthie Carter, past multiple-time winner, legend in this category. Well, like Best Picture movie. Wicked for Good, Paul Tazewell won last year for the film. You still have the great big kind of Glinda dresses and the Munchkins, and then you have more iconic stuff with Dorothy's slippers or her dress that is recreated in the film. I think there'll be appreciation there. Hamnet is a new nominee, but you have that classic period that they like of, not just the 20th century, but 19th century and earlier in this case. And then my big surprise kind of a pick would be One Battle After Another. I'm okay with over-indexing on what is the most critically acclaimed movie of the year that I think usually the Best Picture frontrunner overperforms in terms of nominations. So happy to include him, that film there. Colleen Atwood did the costumes. She's a 12-time nominee, 4-time winner, legend in this category. So felt like instead of going with Hedda, who's a first-time nominee costume designer, it doesn't go against the kind of 5 over 5 overlap rule. Went with One Battle After Another. It got in the BAFTA long list. It got in at the Costume Designers Guild. Now, it's not a traditional type of a nominee. It's more these contemporary types of costumes, and Colleen Atwood has missed in recent years with movies like Beetlejuice, which I predicted and got wrong. I'm going back to the well. I'm thinking of Bob's unique kind of robe. I'm thinking of, Jason Finney's leather jacket and tutu or Sean Penn's military outfit. There are iconic costumes within the film in a movie that's the frontrunner to win Best Picture from a costume designer legend. And this way I don't have overlap, and this way I have the past nominee, so it fit a couple of different rules. I just couldn't bring myself to do a 5 for 5 overlap between production design and costume design, when most years we see only a 2 or 3 overlap. So I feel like there's going to be some weirdness, there's going to be some strangeness in these categories. Maybe it's Hedda, maybe it's something else. But I felt more confident in my production design category, so I felt like the costume design, there was an opportunity there for me to take some risks. Best makeup and hairstyling, my predictions are Frankenstein, The Smashing Machine, Sinners, Marty Supreme, and Coco. So my predictions here: Frankenstein, you have the very prosthetic heavy work, which is what this category is, an emphasis on prosthetics, prosthetic heavy work on a lead actor that is going to be nominated in the case of Jacob Elordi. The Smashing Machine, this is from Kazuhiro, who did the prosthetics for The Rock, Dwayne Johnson's face, and transforming him into Mark Kerr. His last 3 films all got nominated for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. This is the guy who did Bombshell, who did Maestro. So he's a legend who gets nominated almost every time he does something. So I think The Smashing Machine with those prosthetics will be nominated. Sinners, I think, will be nominated because of the transformation with Jack O'Connell near the end and some of the vampire stuff. That's all practical and all makeup, or even the makeup in the I Lied to You iconic sequence in the middle of the film, and a well-liked Best Picture movie. Then I went with Marty Supreme, which apparently did very well at the Makeup Bake Off, which is this presentation that they do of all the shortlisted films, and they showcase just how much prosthetics a lead character in Timothée Chalamet ended up doing. They love prosthetics, but this group actually loves prosthetics for lead characters. That's why I'm going with Elordi, who's an essential lead here, or Smashing Machine with Dwayne Johnson. Apparently a lot of the acne stuff, the unibrow, was actually prosthetics done to Chalamet, and he spent like 5 hours a day or whatever in the chair doing it, so a lot of appreciation for the makeup there. And then I also went with Coco, which is the Japanese submission for international feature film, which made the shortlist for international film, so we know there's appreciation there. It's not prosthetics work, but it is a lot of makeup with the kabuki makeup with a lot of characters, including a lot of the main characters. I think the fact that it showed up here is notable. Just that it showed up, a relatively unseen movie. The makeup category in years past have gone with international makeup, movies, things like Border in the past have been nominated, which are movies that people haven't heard of, but then show up for something like makeup. I think that will be the case here for the Japanese selection, which is actually one of the most celebrated movies of the year in Japan. And makeup category usually does something weird. They usually have some one-off pick. They don't like to go with the traditional Best Picture movies, so it felt weird to go with, One Battle After Another is going to get nominated here. This is the category that goes with the Suicide Squad as their winner and things like that. They like to go with these kind of weird, off-the-ball, one-off type picks because they don't care about the quality of the movie. If the makeup's good, the makeup's good. So we could see a Nuremberg or an Alto Nights. I wanted to go with kind of an international bend, over-index in international films, and go with Coco. Which I don't know how to say, but that's my best guess and my best try, so apologies if I offend anyone on that. Best score, I have Sinners, One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Frankenstein, and Bugonia. Top 4, feel very good about. Not a lot of great precursors in this category, but we like to nominate Best Picture movies and past nominees. Actually, I was looking at the Best Picture movies within the past 3 years. Exactly 4 out of 5 of the eventual movies in this category were Best Picture movies. So we have 5 for 5, so felt good about that. And 3 out of my top 4 are from past nominees. This branch loves past nominees. So those top 4 feel very confident in. But my 5th pick was one that I wasn't super confident in, and I think you can go in a bunch of different directions. But for me, I went with Bugonia, which is a big surprise for a lot of people. I think on our awards expert or some of these sites, it's in the 8th, 9th spot. But I was thinking about it, and what I did last year was actually an analysis of all my previously incorrect predictions for score. And what I found is I continually picked films, and the ones that I ended up getting wrong were films that had a real strong kind of increase in the appreciation, a late riser. Think of something like an American Fiction. Or they were from a legendary past nominee. I missed Terrence Blanchard's nomination for The Five Bloods, or I missed John Williams' nomination for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So then I tried to figure out last year, okay, what was the movie that had the combination of rising late and from a past nominee, and it was Wicked, and I ended up getting that one correct. So what am I going to do this year? I'm going to go with Bugonia, Jerskin Fendrix. Why? It's definitely a movie that's rising late. Industry really likes it. DGA, SAG, we mentioned it already. And Jerskin Fendrix is a past nominee. So it has kind of both of those qualities, or Marty Supreme maybe is peaking late, but it's not from a past nominee. Or some of the other potential contenders, Bryce Dessner, Train Dreams, rising late but not a past nominee. Bugonia kind of fits all of my criteria. It fits both of those criteria. It fits the fact that it's not an electronic-focused movie. They don't like electronic-type scores, so I don't think they're going to go with Seurat or Marty Supreme. It got nominated at the Society of Composers and Lyricists. This was the group that nominated for Wicked last year. Marty Supreme, it beat out, so there's a notable factor there that I don't think there's a lot of love for Marty Supreme. This group is very accurate at predicting the score. Essentially in 24, 20, and 21 of their nominees, they went 5 for 5 with the eventual Oscars. So the fact that Bugonia showed up there is another strong sign of support. So I know it's kind of a surprise. I know a lot of people have not predicting it, but I looked at, a movie that's rising. I looked at a past nominee, which are 2 things that this category loves. I looked at the fact that it's still a classical type of a score, but a little bit off kilter. It's very noticeable. It's in a Best Picture likely movie. It got in the Society of Composers and Song Lyricists. There are some potential contenders, but Bugonia is the only one that checked off all of my boxes. So don't be surprised if Bugonia gets nominated for Best Score on Oscar nominations morning this Thursday. Then for Best Sound, I have F1, Sinners, One Battle After Another, and Frankenstein. So Best Picture nominees usually do pretty well here, which is why I have, Sinners, One Battle, Frankenstein, Sinners, One Battle, Action, Frankenstein, Someone Action, Creature Sounds. F1 is a classic nominee, and then it's very loud. All of them made MPSC. Unfortunately, the Cinema Audio Society Awards don't come out until tomorrow, so I wanted to get this video out a little bit early, so I may get wrong for something like Frankenstein. And then my kind of final surprise pick I went with is Seurat. I want to go with that because usually, since the merging of the sound category between editing and mixing, we have more traditionally 4 out of 5 are editing picks, action picks, sound effects. But then the 5th pick is a more of a traditional sound mixing pick. So music type movies will get nominated usually in the sound mixing category. So something like Wicked last year got nominated as the kind of music pick. This year, my quote-unquote music pick will be Seurat, and its combination of the kind of rave music and the kind of quietness of the desert within the film. I think it's going to be an inspired choice from the group that gave an inspired choice to The Zone of Interest that does have some weird off-kilter picks. The movie won Best Sound at the European Film Awards. We know it's been appreciated because it made a bunch of shortlists that it wasn't supposed to. We know that the Academy really likes it. So the question then is, okay, it's going to make an international feature, but then what are these other categories that it's going to miss? I don't have it in for casting. I don't have it in for score, but I still want to appreciate and recognize that this is a movie that the Academy likes. So went with a bit of an inspired choice, included it here for Best Sound. Then for Best Original Song, I have Golden, K-Pop Demon Hunters, I Lied to You, Sinners, Dear Me, Diane Warren Relentless, Salt Then Sour Then Sweet, Come See Me in the Good Light, and Train Dreams from Train Dreams. Golden is the frontrunner and has been winning at Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. I Lied to You, Sinners, a key part of one of the year's most acclaimed movies. Dear Me, Diane Warren. All you need to know, even if you haven't heard about this movie, is that the song is written by Diane Warren for a documentary about her. Diane Warren, one of the most well-nominated people in this category's history, and get this, has been nominated 8 years in a row. Every year she gets nominated. So she's been nominated 8 years in a row. I'm not getting back off that train now. Diane Warren's song is getting nominated here, Dear Me. Salt Thin Sour Than Sweet, from a documentary, Come See Me in the Good Light by Apple TV, sung by Sarah Bareilles and Brandi Carlile, two well-known, Brandi Carlile's a past nominee, but well-known singers. I think they'll be well appreciated because it's a typical kind of a ballad style that the Oscars like. It doesn't feel like pop stars coming in to cash a check and to get an Oscar nomination. These two are both also executive producers on the film and have been campaigning, so they feel more of a part of it, more of the collaboration, rather than just some pop star coming in to do it. And then I went with Train Dreams from Train Dreams because similarly, Nick Cave is a well-known person, but has been doing some campaigning for the film, is known, involved in the filmmaking world, has done screenwriting, has done scores for other films. So it feels like a natural collaboration where he's not this kind of poppy pop star, but he still is a well-known name with some respect in a movie that I think is going to get nominated for Best Picture. And usually when we see surprises in the song categories, the Killers of the Flower Moon song, the Everything Everywhere All at Once song, it comes from strong Best Picture movies because the song category groups still like to reward Best Picture movies that they like too. And Train Dreams, I have it in for Best Picture. I think they're going to want to nominate the song because they like the film. Best Documentary, I have The Perfect Neighbor, 2,000 Meters to Andreevka, Cover Up, Apocalypse in the Tropics, and My Undesirable Friends, Part 1, Last Air in Moscow. I've got a model which I recently developed, which has been helping me in terms of predicting this category, because the documentary category doesn't have many precursors. It relies on these individual groups to tell you certain things, and combinations often help very well. So based on my model, The Perfect Neighbor and the 2,000 Meters to Andreevka have been getting a lot of industry support and critical support, and I've been getting a lot of showings. So I think both of them are going to get in. Cover Up has the most industry support, PGA, BAFTA, Long List, and DGA, from a past winner in this category and past multiple-time nominee, and Laura Poitras. Netflix, which usually does well in this category and makes sure that their movies are seen. Then you have Apocalypse in the Tropics, which is very similar to this filmmaker's film The Edge of Democracy, which got nominated back in 2016, and it's got the exact same formula. It's got an 82 on Metacritic versus that film had an 81. It's essentially the sequel to that film. It's also from Netflix, following a very similar kind of grouping of themes. If that movie got nominated, I think this one will too as well. Another Netflix movie, so you know it's going to be well seen, and it's got some good support in my model. And then My Undesirable Friends, which doesn't have a lot of support in my model, but has been rising, has a lot of critic support, showed up on Ronald Dargis's top 10 movies of the year, and it's long, which is the big barrier to entry, but when people see it, there's almost unanimous support. And this is the group that rewarded, nominations for Porcelain War, or rewarded 20 Days in Mariupol. They like topics about the Ukraine-Russia conflict and war that's going on, and this is a huge movie about that, and very extensive movie about that, so I think it's going to appeal to this group's sensibilities. Best Visual Effects, I have Avatar, F1, Superman, The Lost Bus, and Wicked for Good. Feel good about this bunch. Avatar is Avatar. The last two won, so it's going to get nominated. F1 is a classic type of a pick where it's very realistic and you don't realize how much VFX are there, but when they showcase it, it is very extensive, and they like that realistic style of VFX. Superman, they like the kind of one-off superhero movies that aren't connected to a cinematic universe. James Gunn's Guardians trilogy all got nominated here, and the movie's been showing up at some key non-VFX places like the Annie Awards. Confident about that. The Lost Bus is more of a vibes pick, this is a classic kind of one-off pick like Greyhound or something that will show up in one of these categories and surprise on Oscar nominations. And it has that kind of realistic style of VFX like F1. It's not talking animals, it's not CGI, monsters fighting or anything. It's a realistic use of fire, which I think will be, kind of appreciated, and it fits more to this group's taste. And then I went with Wicked for Good, which is notable because the last film also got nominated. They like animal work. If you saw last year, whether it be Better Man or Wicked for Good, or they like creations of CGI animals. Even the Apes trilogy that they've nominated and you have more of that animal stuff here in Wicked. It's also from Pablo Hellman, who was a 4-time nominee, a legend of this category. So I think the fact that there's a legend in this category, they like the kind of the animal stuff. They nominated the first movie, ultimately wanted to give Wicked for Good some nominations, and ultimately included it here for VFX. There's just too much going for it for me not to go with it. Best international film, I have Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent, It Was Just an Accident, Surat, and The Voice of Hinrajab. The top 4 I feel great in, all neon films, all been showing up in the important places. The top 3 I have in for Best Picture, and then Surat, which overperformed at the Oscar shortlist. And then ultimately with my final pick, I went with The Voice of Hinrajab because I wanted to go with a movie that was not from neon, because I think the top 4 are from neon, so the fact that it would be odd if all 5 of them ultimately went to one distributor. Do they have enough, ability to get all those movies seen? I don't know. In particular, the one movie that I left off was No Other Choice, which Park Chan-wook's other films, The Handmaiden and Decision to Leave, got snubbed. I just don't think they like his films and his style of films, unfortunately. Instead, went with The Voice of Hinrajab because it's from Tunisia, and we know that this group doesn't love. They like European films, but they don't go 5 for 5 European films. So the fact that it wasn't from Europe is a positive sign. I think also I wanted to include a movie that connects with this branch. You know the Academy. This is the Academy that voted for No Other Land, the documentary last year about the conflict in Israel, between Israel and Palestine. And this movie talks about similar topics. So I think that's going to really emotionally resonate with this branch as well. And it won second place at the Venice Film Festival, so it has some maybe international love as well. And it got nominated at the Golden Globes too, I believe. So it has some of the international support too. Okay, now these short categories. Starting off with Best Animated Short category. I have The Girl Who Cried Pearls, Snow Bear, Iru, I Died in Irpin, and The Three Sisters. So I can't claim to know anything about these shorts. There's some little tidbits I can give you as to why I picked them. The first 2 got nominated at the Annies. One's a stop motion film, The Girl Who Cried Pearls, also from the National Film Board of Canada, which does very well. Snow Bear's from a past Disney animator who drew this himself. So there's going to be some appreciation maybe within friends within the Academy that he has. I have I Died in Irpin. I skipped Iru, which is from Cartoon Saloon, who have done many movies like, Secret of Kells. So they are well appreciated within the animated community. I Died in Irpin is a black and white, kind of hand-drawn type of a film, which stands out from the other movies. More political, more dark, more adult, which I think is good because it stands out. It's not just a cute animal. And then The Three Sisters, which is from a 2-time nominee in this category. So I figured that, there's going to be some appreciation for his work. Best Documentary Short, I have Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renaud, All the Empty Rooms, The Devil is Busy, Heartbeat, and All the Walls Came Down. So my first pick is a movie about an American journalist who's killed in his coverage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and war that's going on there. I mentioned how I think the documentary branch really appreciates these types of films. Then I went with All the Empty Rooms, which is from a past nominee, also being distributed by Netflix. So it's going to be seen about school shootings, a very topical type of a movie. The documentary branch likes these political, topical types of films. The Devil is Busy, distributed by HBO. So that's it's going to be well seen about someone working security at an abortion clinic. Once again, political, socially relevant. Heartbeat is from Jay Rosenblatt. His last 2 films were nominated in this category, so I'm going to bet the fact that this group really likes Jay Rosenblatt. And then the final pick here, I went with All the Walls Came Down, which is about the LA fires. And we've seen documentary shorts like The Last Repair Shop win in this category. I think this group is actually a little bit more LA focused and less international than some of the other branches. And they like LA focused movies. So the fact that this is about the LA fires and the Altadena fires, this will be very hitting close home to maybe a lot of voters. And they'll feel an extra sense of connection to the film, that they'll want to reward it. And then for Best Live Action Short, I have Rock, Paper, Scissors, The Singers, Beyond Silence, Two People Exchanging Saliva, and Butcher's Stain. RPS, Rock, Paper, Scissors, won the Best BAFTA Short last year, so we know at least the BAFTA likes it. That's enough for me. Then The Singers is from an Oscar nominee who did Nine and WIPO, so I think they're going to appreciate his work. Beyond Silence is a powerful film about people who can't speak, who use sign language, talking about their sexual assault experiences. I think the metaphor is clear and obvious and will be emotional to voters there. 2 people exchanging saliva. Included that because it's a funny title, and many years in the best live action short go with the funniest title. They oftentimes get nominated. And then went with the butcher stain because it's moving, emotional, and reminded me a lot of other past nominees. But that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. A long video, but those are all my thoughts on the Oscar nominations. Please feel free to comment below. Let me know your thoughts on these categories. Let me know your Oscar predictions. Let me know where I'm right or wrong. And stay tuned. Thursday, I'm going to be giving my live reactions to the Oscars. Let's hope we do well. Locked and loaded. Let's see how we end up doing. But that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, stay tuned.